Well, this is a downtown mall, and this will be a fast timeline of how Santa's Last Christmas goes. And this is Christmas Day, so there's nobody here. But the story starts up at the North Pole, and Santa, it's bedlam up there, so he's got everybody pounding on him. Mrs. Claus as well will be involved, and Sarge, his right-hand man, who is a powerful man who actually drives the sleigh and is Santa's right-hand man. Now there are two elves who are the bane of Sarge and Santa's existence, and they're practical jokesters. They've got a joke prepared, and they're going to mess things up big time. So, story starts at the North Pole, just before Santa's takeoff, to introduce the characters. Then it proceeds to the mall about late afternoon, and there's a group of 5 teenagers, probably 18, 19, in that range, somewhere, and this is the Paramount, but it could be in front of the Jefferson, or even in front of the movie theater further down. These 5 are just looking for something to do, like teenagers on the mall do. And they're in that age and frame of mind where they could turn to the bad side if they're not careful. So these 5 will be important. One of the 5 is a young man who is at loose ends, and he will be an important player in the story as well. But this will start to introduce the downtown mall area, and there's plenty down here to talk about. Historically, the characters on the mall, the shoppers, what's going on, everything. So that in itself is like a side story. So, story starts at North Pole, then comes down to the mall to introduce those 5 teenagers. About 2 blocks off the east end of the mall is a hospice, and in that hospice is an elderly man, Jim Benson, who is about to make his last walk down the mall. He is sort of fashioned after Paul Goodloe McIntyre, in that he was a very wealthy businessman, very successful and ruthless. He met an Irish actress, Kathleen Krogan, and she changed his life, and toward the last part of their life they devoted their fortune and time to children, basically. So they were really into children. Now the walk will start at the hospice, and he's got a nurse accompanying him because he's very feeble and frail. They'll come past a convenience store, and that group of teenagers is about to go in there for beer and cigarettes. They're minors, but you know, every teenager has a fake ID, so they'll go in there and do a little shoplifting. Well, there's a young lady in the store, and she refuses to sell to them because you can't sell to minors, and that starts a relationship between the young lady and the young man in the gang. And meanwhile, Mr. Benson continues down and starts his walk down the mall. And this is the east end of the mall. In just a little bit, Santa's clay is actually going to bounce off of that pavilion thing there. But we'll get to that. So down here there's a band, a marching band setting up. And my boys are in Charlottesville marching band, so it's sort of fashioned after that. State awards for probably 30 years in a row, something amazing. But we can have a little fun with the Freedom of Speech Mall. But in any event, that band is here to sort of promote the film festival that's going to go on toward the west end of the mall. And Kathleen Krogan, as an actress, was in a very famous Christmas film. And it's going to feature her film. And that Benson will see that, but we'll get to that in just a second. So the band's down here. And we start to see other characters as well. One is a mall cop, and his name is Flanagan, and he knows the kids, and he knows Mr. Benson, and he knows Kathleen Krogan as well. So the story will continue, and I've spoken to several of the merchants on the mall already, and they're all just anxious to do something like this. The gang by this time has gone through the 7-Eleven and is in the back of this toy store, and that's their hangout. And we'll have a little fun later with the toy store and the elves and whatnot. So we will continue down the mall. There's one item I left out, and that's the old man has a little dog, which is his last connection to his deceased wife. And nobody really knows that, but it is, and that will spark a little memory later on. And it's important because that gang has to have money for beer and cigarettes, and they are going to concoct a plan to dog-nap the dog as the festivities are going on in front of the theater. As an example of the promotional aspects of this for the downtown mall, we talked about the toy store. Rugy's as well, the two elves, they're not dressed too well, and we're going to have a little fun with that. There's a number of restaurants. I've enjoyed the Nook for years, but there are a number of them, and a couple others have already expressed interest in this. But when the elves are in this vicinity, we can have them go in and ask for a cookie menu or candy cane menu, something like that. So, I mean, every time I talk to a group, the ideas just start pouring out. And as the action moves down the mall, the relationship between the boy and the girl will develop. The gang is getting ready to do what they're planning to do, and the mall cop is keeping an eye on everybody. He knows something's up, and he's starting to get his hands full because there's quite a crowd down here now. Mr. Benson was beloved in the community, and so was Kathleen Krogan for what they have done in their high profile. So things are starting to heat up a little bit. So I said the sleigh will bounce off the pavilion, and that's because the two knucklehead elves have really messed things up, and Santa has to make a hard landing. And he ends up in Lee Park. And there are a few domicile challenged individuals who are enjoying the seasonal libations. Now, when we include these characters in the video, it's not in a mean way or a mocking way, but it's just to show the characters and life on any mall, really. So, but we'll do it, you know, tastefully and professionally. So that's where the two elves will bolt, because they think they're going to be separated. They've never been separated as long as they can remember. One is named Mr. and one is named Elvis. So they take off, and that makes things worse because for the sleigh to function properly, everybody has to be there. So they take off. Santa takes off after them. Sarge does, and so does Mrs. Claus, and that sets up the sort of the denouement on the downtown mall, because the film festival is about to start. And as the elves are escaping, they come flying down that alley and turn the corner and at a fast pace go past Derriere des Soies. Now these are two elves that have been in the North Pole for a long time. One of them's going to take a double take. One of them's going to have a double take. And that window display is kind of tame compared to what's in there sometimes, so you can imagine that scene. So down the entire length of the mall, there are just interesting vignettes that can be told. There's a group in that ice rink called the Mighty Mites. And if you've never seen them, they're really cute, and they're little kids. I mean, I think as young as 5. They dress them up in hockey gear to the point where they can hardly move. And then the adults, the parents, will kind of push them onto the ice, and they'll go until they stop. And they got so much on, they really can't do much. If they try to move their feet, boom, they're down on the ice. And they pick them up. So it's just an entertaining, they're just interesting. So I'd like to get them in there as well. And of course we have that other theater, the Regal. And if we can get people to come down to the mall to see this being done, to see the movie being shot, and then to publicize what's down here, I think that would be good for the mall. Everybody I talk to down here really thinks it's way past time to do something to spark some energy down here. So this is where everything ends up, at the central place. Christmas tree, a big crowd, the feature film about to start, and this is where they grab the dog. So the gang is involved. The elves are somewhere being pursued. They'll be involved. The mall cop will be. Of course, Sarge and Santa and Mrs. Claus. So, and of course this is a Christmas movie, so everything will turn out fine. And we'll get a chance to really show off the mall down here. So that's a fast look at how this story would unfold. And it's called Santa's Last Christmas because the job of Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus goes to a couple who have devoted their life to children. And this is the last run for the existing Santa. But Jim Benson and Kathleen Krogan are about to be reassigned as well. And at the end, they will be reunited at the North Pole as the new Santa and Mrs. Claus. So it's going to be a wholesome, entertaining video of not only Santa Claus at Christmas time, but Charlottesville Mall at Christmas time. And I said, when people get together and start talking about this, the ideas just spark. And I'm gonna show you one last thing here. When I started this, you might have heard something in the background, and I said,
wait.
I said,
wait.
We're not going to have a shortage of ideas. The problem will
wait.
be. Okay, I'm waiting.
Wait.
Problem will be choosing which ones advance the story. So I was standing here, and all of a sudden this thing comes on, and
wait.
I don't believe elves have to worry about this kind of stuff.
Wait.
So, I mean, there's just a ton of ideas down
Wait.
here, just waiting to be developed.
Wait.